Discover the miraculous journey of Joshua, God's greatest warrior revealed in divine transformation. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, the people of Israel stood on the banks of the Jordan River, a river swirling with the weight of their collective history, a history gilded with the glories of the Almighty, yet shadowed by the shackles of slavery in Egypt. Above them, the sun cast a golden hue over the wilderness, a landscape that held both promise and peril. The Israelites, a multitude of former slaves turned wanderers, now hovered at the brink of their destiny, hearts heavy with the burdens of memory yet pulsing with a cautious hope for the promised land. There, in the center of this vast nation, stood Joshua, a devoted servant of Moses, a stalwart warrior of faith, and a humble leader on the cusp of unparalleled challenge. As he clutched the words etched in his spirit by the Almighty, "Be strong and courageous," a tremor of reverence coursed through him. The daunting task ahead loomed large. The formidable walls of Jericho, fortified and looming in the distance, seemed insurmountable even to his seasoned warrior mind. A flicker of anxiety washed over Joshua as he surveyed the throng, feeling the weight of their expectations pressing down like the oppressive sun. He recalled the divine covenant, God's promises made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Those solemn oaths hung in the air, shimmering with the echoes of history. But as murmurs of doubt arose amongst the gathered, he sensed something darker creeping among the people. Achan's sin, rooted in disobedience, stirred division and discord, the shadows of distrust rising like a fog over the hearts of the Israelites. In his distress, Joshua turned to the Lord, heartsick at the betrayal that almost unraveled their fragile unity. The significance of their covenant faithfulness weighed heavily upon him, as it was that very trust which held the key to their destiny. Suddenly, amidst the chaos and turmoil of conflicting emotions, the voice of the Lord broke through, booming with divine authority. The promise of victory declared not by the sword, but through an unwavering faith ignited a fire in Joshua's spirit. God spoke of redemption, a repentance that would restore their hearts, their unity, their journey. In that sacred moment, Joshua felt the mantle of leadership descend upon him like a cloak woven from the threads of holy determination. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. As Joshua gathered the elders, he whispered a call to holiness weighted with the knowledge of their history, steeped in divine providence. The air humbled as he declared that every step forward would echo through generations. Standing resolute at the precipice of the promised land, conflicting emotions swirled within him, hope battling uncertainty, resolve clashing against a wellspring of fear. Each heart around him surged with expectation, the air charged with anticipation of monumental actions yet to come. With a heart swollen with conviction, he summoned his people with fervor. "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." The echoes of apostasy and the shadows of Jericho loomed large, as God's grand design awaited its transformative unveiling. The Israelites, now on the cusp of destiny, stood on the edge of a great revelation waiting to unfold. With the weight of impending destiny heavy upon him, Joshua called upon the elders one final time. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the riverbanks as he implored, "Gather your families, prepare your hearts, for the Lord is about to do wonders among us this day." As the elders relayed his message, a stir arose among the people. The once restless crowd grew solemn, whispers mingling with the murmuring waters, as anticipation surged like the current. Some looked toward the fortified walls of Jericho, their fortitude visible even from afar. Others fixed their gaze to the heavens, seeking clarity from the God who led them out of Egypt. That night Joshua sought solitude beneath the starlit sky. In the stillness he encountered the presence of the Lord anew. "Joshua, The voice spoke gently yet firmly. "I have given you every place on which you set your foot, just as I promised to Moses." These words enveloped him, dissolving his uncertainties. Yet the daunting task lingered. The walls of Jericho stood defiantly, a formidable enemy to faith itself. "What shall I do, O Lord?" Joshua breathed, broken yet bold. The answer came as a whisper among the rustling leaves, a divine strategy unfurled in his spirit, a peculiar assignment to unveil the triumph of faith over strength. "March around the city once for 6 days. Let the priests carry the Ark of the Covenant before the people. On the 7th day march around the city 7 times, then let the people shout." Joshua's heart quickened. A strategy not of man but of God, a pathway sculpted in divine wisdom. He envisioned the people marching, the Ark central, symbolizing the presence of the Almighty. It was not by force, but by faith that they would prevail. With renewed purpose, Joshua returned to the Israelites at dawn, rising to meet them with a countenance radiant with the light of revelation. "Hear me, O children of Israel. The Lord our God has spoken. We will take Jericho, not by sword, but through steadfast faith." The assembly listened, their doubts beginning to melt into resolute belief as Joshua recounted the divine command. "Gather your strength, lift your voices in praise, for we shall witness the power of our God." And as the march began, the air crackled with reverence. The heavy sound of the marching feet bore witness to a faith alive, resolute. As they encircled Jericho day after day, the shouts and praises of the people melded with the beating of their hearts, rising like incense before the Lord. But on the final day, the 7th, there was a collective rippling of nerves. Would God truly fulfill his promise? The priests raised the shofar, and as they blew a long, triumphant blast, the people erupted into a resounding shout, their voices soaring high above the ramparts. And in that moment the earth itself bore witness to their faith. The walls of Jericho, haughty and towering, began to tremble, cracked by the sound of unyielding belief. And as the dust settled, God revealed his sovereign plan. Walls that stood for centuries were toppled, yet in the ashes of destruction lay the seeds of redemption. For within Jericho lived Rahab, a harlot who would become part of the lineage of the Messiah. What she didn't know was that God's grace reached deeper than any earthly walls, extending beyond history into the restoration of his people. In that divine juncture, Joshua's heart swelled with awe. The pathway ahead was still tumultuous, but the Lord had transformed yet another stage of their journey. Little did they know, their greatest battles were still to come, battles that held the key to the land of milk and honey, and the very promise of the future. As the dust settled over the ruins of Jericho, Joshua gathered the people, their eyes wide with a mixture of disbelief and joy. The air shimmered with the residue of their shouts, and within their hearts surged a newfound faith, a faith that seemed utterly impossible just days prior. "Behold," Joshua proclaimed, his voice echoing against the remnants of fallen walls, "the Lord has brought down the walls of Jericho. He has shown us his mighty hand and led us into victory. Remember this day, for it is written, he has fulfilled his promise to us." But though victory was secured, the journey was far from finished. A harsh land awaited them, filled with enemies not yet vanquished. Joshua, aware of the burdens lying ahead, turned his gaze toward the horizon, seeking strength from the one who had led them thus far. The people whispered amongst themselves, recounting their fears and doubts as they beheld the utter devastation around them. Yet in their midst, Rahab, the harlot whose faith had spared her and her family, stood as a beacon of hope. She approached Joshua, her countenance radiant with gratitude. "Your God is indeed God, and he has delivered us from destruction. I ask you, spare me and my family, as I helped you." Joshua looked into her eyes, recognizing the promise of salvation she carried. "Your life shall be spared, for your faith has not gone unnoticed. Gather your family, and remain with us until we leave this place." Thus it was decreed. The scarlet cord, a mark of her faith, would be a sign. Even in destruction, God's grace shone brightly, weaving hope amidst despair. With Jericho behind them, the Israelites pushed forward, led by the ark, the symbol of the Lord's enduring presence. As they journeyed, Joshua learned of the next city before them, Ai, a smaller but fierce enemy. The strategizing began once more, yet even in their early victories a new fear arose. "Shall we approach Ai, O Lord?" Joshua sought counsel, heavy with the weight of leadership. As night cloaked the land, the Lord spoke clearly. "Do not be afraid, for I will give it into your hand. However, there is sin among you. Sanctify the people, for one has taken what is devoted to destruction." At this revelation, a heavy silence fell. The hearts of Joshua and the elders quaked at the thought of hidden sin within their camp. "Who has brought this dishonor upon us?" Joshua cried, desperation in his voice. The very air thickened with tension as it became clear. The sin of Achan would be revealed, an act that endangered the entire people of Israel. Achan had taken what belonged to the Lord, sealing their fate. Consequently, Joshua summoned the tribes, drawing lots before the Lord, until Achan stood before the assembly, trembling. "I have sinned against the Lord," he confessed, his countenance stricken. "I coveted the spoils and took them." The weight of judgment loomed over Achan, who would now bear the consequences of his disobedience. The assembly watched in grief, grasping the severity of sin's cost to the community. As judgment was rendered, a new understanding settled upon Joshua. For every triumph there lay a lesson, each requiring steadfast faithfulness to the Lord's command. With Achan accounted for, the Israelites prepared to storm Ai, purified and resolute. "Arise and take the land," Joshua declared, invigorated by a reverence for God's holiness and sovereignty. And thus, they marched forth again, the Lord's presence leading them. Victory awaited, yet the sacred charge remained. Remain faithful in every triumph, for with faith, God could perform wonders still to come. Little did they know, behind the victories, a deeper narrative was unfolding, revealing the tapestry of God's eternal promise. Would they too learn to trust Him beyond the walls they would face next? As the dawn broke over the plains surrounding Ai, the Israelites gathered, their hearts emboldened after the solemn reckoning of Achan's sin. The air was thick with expectation, a tangible sense of divine purpose palpable among the people. Joshua stood before them, the sun casting long shadows that mingled with the remnants of the night's fears, as he spoke with fervor, his words igniting the spirit of the warriors. "Prepare yourselves, for the Lord our God has said He will deliver Ai unto us," he commanded. "Let every man take courage, for we fight not just for victory, but to honor our God, whose name we bear. He has revealed His ways, and today we shall obey." With renewed minds they equipped themselves for battle, a steady hammering of shields and swords echoing across the land. Each heartbeat served as a reminder of the covenant they held. They were not just a nation of warriors, but the chosen people of the Mighty One of Israel. As they stood ready, Joshua took aside the captains of the men and laid out the plan. "Let us approach Ai by night, for it is a cunning city, fortified and proud. We shall draw them out, give the appearance of retreat, and when they least expect it, this shall be our opportunity to strike." And so the night cloaked them as they moved. The silence was deafening, broken only by the distant rustle of enemies unwittingly sleeping. Joshua and his men advanced under the cloak of darkness, holding their breath as they bounded forward, the weight of the moment thick in their throats. As the sun began to rise, casting light over the hills, the cunning plan unfolded. With a shout that splintered the dawn, the men feigned retreat, drawing the soldiers of Ai into pursuit, unaware of the ambush awaiting behind them. At once the signal was given and a great fire blazed from the rear, smoke rising like an offering to God. "Look, the city is burning," cried the men of Ai, their hearts gripped by fear and confusion. Seeing the fire, a great fear fell over them as the Israelites surged forward, the forces within the city thrown into chaos. Amid this fervor, Joshua lifted his spear toward heaven, a symbol of their covenant, as he commanded the victory they had awaited. In the midst of the turmoil, the mighty hand of the Lord moved, scattering the men of Ai like chaff before the wind. The Israelites, emboldened by their obedience and by the wrath of God against the sins of their enemies, pressed on with fervency. They struck down every last inhabitant of Ai, for God had declared such judgment for their wickedness. As their swords fell silent, yet again the people raised their voices in praise. They understood now through the fire of battle and the lesson of faith that victory was in their obedience to the Lord's commands. Yet darkness lingered in the hearts of some as they beheld the ruins, a haunting reminder of sin's toll. Joshua gathered them once more, his voice soaring above the ashes of Ai. Let this serve as a reminder of God's holiness and our commitment to his ways. For the Lord desires not only our victories but our hearts, filled with righteousness and truth. He paused, allowing their hearts to ponder the gravity of such trust. Yet beyond their triumphs lay a greater mystery. Behold, I will lead you further into the land of promise, where cities await, and kings shall rise. But know this, your journey is woven with trials that test your faith as gold is refined in fire. Little did they know, with every victory, the threads of God's grand design entwined their destinies, a promise of restoration, redemption, and an inheritance yet to be revealed. What lay ahead whispered of the clash of kingdoms and the unfolding of prophecy, beckoning them into depths of trust they had yet to grasp. Then the Israelites gathered at the sight of Ai, their spirits aflame with both victory and caution. Joshua, ever vigilant, called the people together at the foot of Mount Ebal, instructing them to renew their covenant with the Lord. We have witnessed his power today, Joshua proclaimed, and we must not forget the righteousness that brought us here. Come forth, all of you, and hear the words of the law. Let our hearts be humble, and our spirits fixed on his commandments. As he read from the book of the law, the words fluttered on the wind, reverberating against the rocks and stirring the hearts of the people. The blessings for obedience and the curses for disobedience rang out through the valley, echoing a divine reminder of their commitment. The Israelites stood attentive, acknowledging their God's sovereignty and recognizing the gravity of their future endeavors. Before long, as the sun coursed across the sky, their hearts were filled with both hope and apprehension. They were aware that Ai was only the beginning of what lay ahead, strengthened yet still marred by the memory of transgression. They would march through lands yet untrodden, facing foes yet unchallenged, and the shadows of their past would forever linger until reconciliation was fully made. Still, the hearts of some trembled at the thought of future confrontations. And so Joshua sought the Lord once more, casting himself upon the ground, pleading for guidance. O Lord, how shall we proceed? What victories await us, and what trials must we endure? As daylight waned, the presence of the Lord enveloped him. Fear not, my servant, for I shall show you the way. In the places of prosperity where you tread, remember the sin of Achan has been dealt with. Yet trial and obedience remain your path, leading you to the cities of refuge and deeper faith. With dawn came new determination. The Israelites prepared for a journey that would stretch into uncharted territories, praying for courage to face the giants that awaited them. They packed their belongings, laden with tools for building and implements for war. And just as their preparations reached a fervor, word came from the hills of Gibeon. The inhabitants, sensing the might of Israel and the failures of their own alliances, devised a cunning plan. They sent forth ambassadors dressed in worn-out garments with bread that was dry and moldy, presenting themselves as from a distant land, seeking peace. We have heard of your exploits, O Israel, they said. We wish for friendship, lest we perish at your hands. The leaders of Israel, fatigued by the recent victories and wary of the subtle influences of their neighbors, did not seek the counsel of the Lord, but instead agreed to a covenant. With solemn vows exchanged and a treaty made, they welcomed the Gibeonites, only to discover the shadows of deception that had taken root. As the days turned, the Gibeonites became servants of Israel, gathering wood and water. Yet whispers of their cunning reached the ears of the surrounding kings, who plotted together to smite the Gibeonites and strike against Israel in one swift blow. Thus the Israelites would soon stand on the brink of another trial, one of trust woven against the backdrop of their own hasty decisions. Fear began to encroach as they learned of the forthcoming onslaught. The Gibeonites, now bound by covenant, sent word saying, "Come to our aid, for we have become a prey." In this urgent plea, the Spirit of the Lord stirred in Joshua. Fear not, for the Lord your God is with you. he declared. Armed with divine resolve, Joshua gathered the warriors, their eyes set on the path laid before them, the cries of the Gibeonites echoing louder and louder as the day of reckoning approached. The Lord had not yet revealed the fullness of his plan, but every moment pregnant with divine purpose guided the Israelites further into his sovereign design, where their trust would be tested afresh, and victories born from obedience ahead. What would they find beyond the veil of uncertainty? What deeper lessons lay in wait, spun into the tapestry of God's everlasting covenant? As the sun began to rise, casting its golden rays upon the land, Joshua rallied the people with a fervor that echoed through the encampment. "Arise, O mighty warriors of Israel! Today we shall battle not only for our own, but for those whom the Lord has brought into our midst. Our covenant stands firm. We shall defend the Gibeonites against the onslaught of our enemies." The Israelites, still bearing the zeal of recent victory, brandished their swords, and their hearts stirred with a mixture of trepidation and resolve. The shadow of fear loomed over them, for the 5 kings of the Amorites had united, an alliance of might intending to crush their newfound brethren. The crack of dawn was but the beginning as Joshua ascended to a high hill, seeking divine clarity. "O Lord of hosts, grant us your strength. You have led us thus far. Let your presence go before us today." And behold, the Lord spoke, "I have given them into your hands. Fear not, for I shall fight alongside you." With renewed assurance he descended the hill and prepared the troops, dividing them into 3 companies. "We shall surprise them in the early morning. Let us move with stealth, for the God of Israel is with us." As they approached Gibeon under the cloak of twilight, the winds whispered of the impending clash. The Gibeonites, having heard the rumble of Israel's march, felt a mingling of hope and fear. They had sought refuge under the wings of God's chosen people, and now they were at the mercy of his promises. In the stillness before dawn, Joshua laid his plans, reminding the men, "We fight for justice and our brethren. Let none falter in heart or spirit. This day the Lord shall show his power, and the glory shall be his." As the first rays of sunlight pierced the horizon, the armies of Israel surged forth and the clash of steel rang out like thunder. The Amorite kings, taken by surprise, were met with the swift tenacity of Israelite valor. Great deeds of bravery unfolded as warriors fell, not by sword skill alone, but by the hand of providence. "Chase them," Joshua commanded, and the men pursued, for the Lord had caused a great confusion to fall upon their enemies. The Amorite forces were thrown into chaos. In the midst of battle, as the day stretched toward noon, a remarkable sight unfolded. Joshua raised his voice to the heavens, calling upon the Lord, "Sun, stand still over Gibeon, and moon, in the valley of Aijalon." His faith was unyielding, and by the very word of the servant of the Lord the sun halted its course, granting them victory against the foes before them. Daylight lingered as the Israelites pressed on, while the heavens bore witness to the might of God displayed through his servant. It was an unprecedented event, and the hearts of the people witnessed a miracle. They fought with faith, knowing the Lord was their champion. As evening embraced the land, Joshua gathered the warriors, their faces aglow with the remnants of glory and relief. Exhausted yet triumphantly united, they returned to Gibeon, their spirits alight with tales of divine intervention. But the foundations of trust in their covenant would soon be tested once more. For the Gibeonites' deception lingered like a shadow. Would they become a snare, or continue to be allies in God's plan? Thus the Israelites stood at a crossroads, where faith clashed against doubt, and the promises made would unfold in ways yet unseen. What further trials awaited, and how would the covenant of the Lord guide them through uncharted waters? For in their journey, the hand of God moved ever closer, weaving their fate into the greater tapestry of his sovereign design. As the sun descended below the horizon, painting the sky with shades of amber and crimson, the Israelites gathered once more in Gibeon. Their hearts, still aflame with the memories of victory, beat fervently for the trials which lay ahead. Yet, uncertainty lingered in the air like the scent of the earth after rain, for they were acutely aware of the trust that had to reign between them and the Gibeonites. Joshua, standing among his people, felt the weight of the moment. "People of Israel," he began, voice steady yet filled with fervor, "the Lord has proven his might before us in battle. He has silenced the sun and bestowed upon us triumph. Yet let us also remember that the covenant we hold is not merely for our strength, but a reflection of the mercy we have received." He turned his gaze upon the Gibeonites who approached, still trembling from the conflict they had narrowly escaped. "Fear not, for we shall stand united. The Lord of hosts commands us to keep our word. We must honor the pact forged under his watchful eyes." The Gibeonites, understanding the gravity of their alliance, bowed low, their voices mingling with respect and gratitude. "We recognize the grace shown to us, O Joshua. Lead us, and we shall follow, trusting in the God of Israel." However, deep within the souls of the Israelites, the shadows of suspicion did not easily disperse. The memory of deception persisted. "What if they turn against us?" one of the elders murmured to another. "What if their hearts are set upon treachery?" Unbeknownst to them, the Lord's providence was at work, weaving a narrative of redemption and strength through the fabric of their alliance. That night, as the stars twinkled brightly, a solemn stillness settled upon the camp. Joshua sought counsel with the Lord, fervently pouring out his concerns. "O God, will you reveal yourself through these Gibeonites? Can your purpose be fulfilled in what we deem uncertain?" In the quiet, a whisper floated upon the night air, resonating deep within his spirit. "Joshua, do not fear. I have chosen these people to be part of your journey. In their companionship, my power shall be displayed, and many shall witness the truth of who I am." Meanwhile, the Gibeonites gathered, fearful of the fate and yet hopeful for acceptance. They convened to share their own stories of despair, and their understanding of the Lord's power in the recent battle dawned upon them like the first light of day. "What Joshua has shown, let it embolden us. Perhaps our survival is part of a divine plan greater than we can fathom." One Gibeonite elder spoke, igniting a spark of unity among them. As dawn broke over the land, the sound of horns filled the air, drawing the Israelites from their slumber. Joshua stood among them, resolute and emboldened by divine assurance. "Today we merge our fates. The Lord will show us how our lives intersect for his glory. This covenant shall be a testament to his faithfulness." Thus with new resolve they moved forward, side by side, the Israelites and Gibeonites, trusting in the Lord's plan. As they prepared for the challenges that lay ahead, a murmur woven through the camp caught their attention. "God is doing a new thing among us. Trust in his ways." And so, both nations prepared to embark on a journey that would transcend their understanding. For the hand of God was already orchestrating acts of deliverance and faithfulness. They could not see it yet, but it was the beginning of trials that would forge a legacy of faith and loyalty. What wonders lay ahead, and how would the unfolding of this alliance impact not only their destinies but the very history of Israel? For even in the shadows of doubt, God's sovereign hand was guiding them toward a greater revelation, one where his glory would be made manifest among the nations. The morning sun arose, casting its golden rays upon the camp of Israel as the people gathered, their hearts united in purpose. Joshua, invigorated by the Lord's promise, summoned the leaders of the tribes. "Hear me, O Israel. We stand at the threshold of a divine movement. The Lord has spoken, our destiny awaits, and we shall not shy from the path he has set before us." As the Israelites listened, their voices melded in agreement, a chorus of resolve rising before the heavens. Just outside their midst, the Gibeonites, having pledged their allegiance, felt a mixture of hope and trepidation. Their past through deception haunted them, yet they clung to Joshua's words as a lifeline. In the shadows of the encampment, whispers of discontent brewed among a faction of the Israelite leaders. "How can we trust these Gibeonites?" one voiced in hushed tones. "They deceived us once. Can they be trusted again?" The concern rippled through the gathered assembly, as suspicions festered. But the Lord's Spirit swept through the assembly, and Joshua, sensing the unrest, called for stillness. "Is it not the Lord who leads us? Are we to govern our actions by resolve rooted in fear? For have we not seen his mighty hand in the battle against the 5 kings?" At this, the people began to recall their recent victories, the stirring of faith igniting anew. We must remember his promises, that he is a fortress and deliverer. Joshua continued, passion filling his voice. We must embrace unity, for our strength lies not in mistrust but in covenant fidelity. As the day wore on, the two nations began to work side by side, harvesting grain, mending tents and sharing their provisions. The Gibeonites, skilled in crafts, taught the Israelites how to fashion weapons from the metals they had salvaged. Each act of cooperation knit them closer together, a fabric of mutual support emerging. But far away, reports reached the ears of neighboring kings. Those whom Israel had defeated now filled with dread and anger. The Gibeonites have turned to the Israelites. They have allied with them. Gather your troops, for we shall not let them prosper. Their leader Adonizedek proclaimed fury fueling their resolve against the conquerors. It was then that a messenger broke through the Gibeonite encampment, panic-stricken. Adonizedek plans to march against us. He seeks vengeance on both you and the Gibeonites. They come with a great army. The word sent a shockwave through the camp, and the once peaceful atmosphere erupted into chaos. Yet amid fear, Joshua gathered the people, declaring, "Hold your ground. The Lord is with us, just as he was in battle before. We shall not be shaken. Gibeonites, you have shown faith. Now see how the Lord shall deliver us." The Gibeonites, witnessing his fervor, began to echo his confidence, their hearts emboldened. As dusk approached and the first stars flickered in the sky, Joshua led the united front in prayer, a plea to the God of Israel. O Lord, who fights for us, we implore you. Grant us strength and wisdom for what is to come. Amidst fervent prayer, the Lord's answer thundered in the hearts of his people, a surge of assurance igniting their spirits. "Fear not," he whispered to Joshua, "for I have delivered your enemies into your hands. Be ready to witness my glory." Even as the shadows grew long and uncertainty loomed before them, they anticipated the approaching storm. The contours of the battle ahead lay shrouded in mystery. The hearts of the Israelites and Gibeonites braced for what was to unfold, an alliance forged in the fires of faith and fear against overwhelming odds. What would the coming dawn reveal? How would the convergence of two nations shape the destiny of Israel? For even as the armies gathered, God's sovereign plan was poised to unfurl, promising not merely survival but a movement that would echo through the annals of time, one where his name would be glorified among the nations. The dawn broke with a fierce red glow, painting the skies above the camp of Israel as the tension and anticipation mounted. The warriors gathered, their armor glinting in the early light, each face marked with determination. Joshua rose early, his heart heavy yet resolute. The Lord had assured him of victory, but the shadow of Adonizedek's approach loomed large. "Awake, O Israel! Prepare for battle!" Joshua commanded, his voice resonating with authority. The hearts of the people quickened. The time had come to demonstrate their faith and obedience. The Gibeonites, standing resolutely beside them, felt the weight of hope and fear intertwining in their spirits. "Will we fight for our homes?" a Gibeonite leader named Caleb asked, thrusting his spear towards the heavens. "For we are no longer alone. We shall stand as one." The sound of his words ignited a fire within the ranks, as voices of both Gibeonites and Israelites merged into a rallying cry. Hearing their fervor, Joshua raised his staff. "Brothers, let us remember the Lord's past victories, for he has been our shield and fortress, our help in times of trouble. Today, we shall be as a single fist against the foe." The people thumped their weapons against shields in agreement, uniting their hearts in resolve and faith. As the sun ascended, the horizon darkened with the approaching armies of Adonizedek. Clouds of dust kicked into the air grew thicker as a multitude marched forward, their banners held high, fierce and formidable. The sight was daunting, yet faith began to dissolve fear among the Israelites. "Look, the enemy comes!" cried one of the soldiers. Panic tried to creep in, yet Joshua raised his voice above the din. "We shall not fear. The Lord is our strength. Remember his promises which say, 'You shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor of the arrow that flies by day.'" As the armies neared, Joshua sought God's counsel in the fervor of battle preparation. He withdrew to a secluded place, lifting his hands skyward, invoking the name of the Lord. O God of our fathers, you have promised to fight for us. Grant us courage this day, that we may reflect your glory in our actions. In the depths of his petitions, Joshua felt a divine surge. The Lord's voice broke through the silence. Go forth, I am with you. I shall deliver your enemies into your hands. Fear not, for this battle is mine. Encouraged, Joshua returned to his people. As his eyes swept over the frightened faces, a calm determination settled within him. Let us be with courage. The Lord of hosts fights for us. Prepare yourselves with faith. The battle is his. As swords clashed and arrows flew under the radiant sun, the battle commenced. A fierce cry erupted as Israel and Gibeon joined forces, pressing against the tide of adversaries. Adoni-Zedek's forces, fierce and numerous, sought to overrun them, but Joshua and his warriors stood resolute. Then, a remarkable event unfolded before their eyes. Dark clouds began to gather, and rain fell in torrents upon the battlefield. The ground turned to mud, and suddenly, the enemies lost their footing, their organized lines crumpling under the weight of confusion and panic. The power of the Lord surged through Israel as they pressed forward, witnessing the mighty hand of God in their midst. The God of Israel has triumphed. The cries echoed across the valley. In moments of strife and uncertainty, the people of Israel recognized the profound truth. God was with them just as he had always promised. The battle raged on, faith fueling their strength, a divine transformation in both warrior and ally. What would be the true outcome of this celestial intervention? As the cries of victory began to rise, one question lingered in the atmosphere, gripping their hearts with anticipation. How would God's sovereign plan for Israel unfold amidst the chaos? The battle was just beginning, but the promise of their God loomed closer, redirecting the course of nations. In the aftermath of the tumultuous battle at Gibeon, the sun arose with a renewed brightness, casting rays of light upon a landscape both scarred and victorious. The warriors of Israel stood in awe, feeling the tangible presence of the Almighty coursing through their veins. As the dust settled, Joshua gathered the remnants of his people, their hearts still thrumming with the reverberations of God's deliverance. Behold, Joshua proclaimed, his voice reverberating through the air. The Lord has fought for us. He confounded our foes and brought forth victory against overwhelming odds. Let this day be a testament to his faithfulness, for our God lives, and he shall never forsake his people. With arms lifted high and faces aglow with gratitude, the Israelites and Gibeonites joined in unison, their voices rising like incense toward the heavens. They praised the one who had orchestrated their alliance, knowing that the bonds forged in adversity would carry them forward into new lands, new trials, and divine revelations yet to come. Yet with victory came reflection, for the Lord's promise included not just deliverance but a call to deeper covenant fidelity. Joshua, recalling the whispers of divine guidance amidst the battle, recognized the weight of leadership that rested heavily upon him. Gather the people, he instructed the leaders, his heart resolute. It is time to renew our covenant with the God who has made us a people. As the assembly formed in reverence, Joshua brought forth the book of the law, and read aloud once more the words that shaped their identity as a nation, a society woven together by faith, obedience, and divine mandate. He reminded them of the blessings that would pour forth from their allegiance and the consequences that came from turning away. Spirits stirred, as reminders of past disobedience echoed in the hearts of the listening throng. God has proven his might, he emphasized. Let not our hearts be swayed by fear or doubt, for those who trust in him shall never be forsaken. However, within the crowd may have still lingered murmurs of mistrust towards the Gibeonites. Like shadows flitting between the sacred words, thoughts of deception whispered caution. But God was weaving a narrative where redemption would surpass doubt, a design where unity and faith would birth not just survival, but a legacy of unwavering fidelity. That night, as they encamped beneath the celestial canopy of stars, Joshua sought the Lord's guidance once more. In the stillness, he felt an overwhelming sense of divine peace wash over him. "Indeed, dear servant, my plans for this alliance span far beyond the crossroad you now stand upon," the Lord assured him. "It is through this union, my beloved, that nations shall witness my glory, a beacon of hope that shall anchor hearts in faith." In the days that followed, as the people rested and regained their strength, a wise Gibeonite governor named Caleb stepped forward. "We are but humble servants in your service, yet the hand of the Lord has united us. We seek to honor the covenant made with you," he stated earnestly, looking into the eyes of Joshua, whose gaze softened. "Teach us, that we, too, may know the ways of your God." Seeing sincerity reflected in his eyes, Joshua smiled. "Let us grow together. Unity in this journey will be our greatest strength. We will share our traditions, our knowledge, and all that God has imparted to us." Thus the Israelites and Gibeonites began a newfound partnership, intertwining their lives through prayers, feasts, and the sharing of teachings. They became a true family, bearing one another's burdens, lifting their voices to the skies in unison. The covenant prospered as they journeyed through land, and soon the people began to experience the fruits of their alliance. Months passed, filled with battles fought and victories claimed. They established a society not merely defined by conquest, but by the grace found through shared faith. Every family, every tribe learned to bear witness to the truth, their hearts united between the triune God and his unfailing promises. Then came the day when word arrived from the far corners of Canaan. Kings, fearful of their fellowship, plotted once more to smite the united front. Yet the hearts of the Israelites surged not with fear, but with faith, an unwavering trust in the God of their ancestors, a God who offered strength in weakness and delivered the humble from despair. "Armed with the assurance of our covenant," Joshua declared, standing among the multitude, "let us go forward. The Lord has borne witness to our obedience, and our enemies shall tremble at the call of his name." And thus, as the drumbeats of conflict echoed in the distance, the people of Israel and Gibeon marched forth together, an embodiment of trust, fidelity, and fearless unity, knowing that each step was crafted by the hand of the Almighty. In the unfolding tapestry of God's plan, the alliances formed in faith would lead to the deliverance of nations, a flicker of his grace transforming hearts and futures, cascading through generations, reverberating like waves crashing upon the shores of time. The dawn breaks anew before them, yet their journey, filled with trials and triumphs, reminds us that God is not just a distant figure, but an ever-present help in times of trouble. He calls us into his purpose, to embrace him fully, and to live out covenant faithfulness together. And so, dear friends, as you reflect upon this powerful narrative of faith, let it stir within you, a call to unity and unwavering trust in God's perfect plan. Now take a moment to respond. You need to subscribe now to stay connected to God's Word. Do not miss what comes next in our series of powerful biblical stories. Leave a like now to help spread God's truth through the algorithm. Let his light shine into every nook and cranny of our world. Comment below and share your spiritual reflections on how this story impacted your faith journey, for your insights may uplift others. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends whose soul need to hear about God's incredible, unwavering faithfulness. Let us stand united under the banner of his name as we walk in the light of his covenant love.